Hey! Hello, everybody. Well, my microphone dropped off. That's a good way to start the show, and my pin is not centered. I'm sorry about that. Hey, I'd like to thank everybody at Town Meeting TV today. It's a beautiful day out, so I got my friends here helping me. We got Kevin Kevin is a line producer. My cameraman are Jackson and Daniel, my friends, my former neighbors. And one is still my neighbor. I'd also like to thank Megan O'Rourke. I'd like to thank Miss Lauren Glendavidian. I'd like to thank Emily and Jordan Mitchell, of course. And I want to thank everybody who's working on the show. Really appreciate it. You know, it's not called Town Meeting TV for nothing, my friends. We do the best coverage of Burlington election nights and what's going on all over the state, the country, and the world. We have a breaking news story. We were joking about that. I said to Kevin, I said, hey, no pictures of Trump today, man. And he said, well, what about this news story? I'm not going to go into it fully because I haven't looked at it, and I think I have to be responsible, but I believe that former President Donald Trump, there he is, was found guilty of forcing himself on a woman in New York City many years ago. Her name is E. Jean Carroll. She's an excellent artist and writer, and this really ruined her life. And even though I must stress, this was not a criminal rape case. This was a civil case where they found him guilty of, again, this just broke, so I don't want to go into it too further, but the jury did not believe him. The jury did not believe him. And the jury is not going to believe him about Stormy Daniels because the people involved have been all very truthful about it. And I think Mr. Trump is facing, again, more trouble in Georgia where, I mean, they have him on tape trying to steal 11,000 something votes. My friend, I mean, if that's not a felony, I mean, there's people who are mistakenly voting in two different states are getting up to 6 years in prison. So, and the January 6 people, one guy was just sentenced to 14 years. So I would think that would be a 25-year sentence to me if I was a judge, putting the whole constitutional and democratic process in danger. So moving on from President Trump, I'd have to say, you know, we're a two-party system, fortunately or unfortunately. Now, I've talked many, many times about on this show how I believe that there, for example, should be a center party, a left, a right. I think 4 or 5 parties. But I would have to say to my Republican friends, and I grew up in a town in Connecticut that was very Republican, but they were moderate Republicans. I would say if you nominate Mr. Trump, you're not just doing your party, I mean, you're doing your country a disservice, but you're really, really kind of putting the two-party system in just jeopardy. Okay, so let's talk about my main man, the Presidente, El Presidente, Mr. Joe. I love you, man.
Sleepy Joe.
I really think he's great. Now, since I've been on, he was on the Correspondents' Dinner in Washington. And you know, that's a tough dinner. You got all the press there, and of course they're, you know, I think that they're generally with the president, to be honest with you. But you've got to make it funny, you've got to make it serious. People are joking and they're sitting at your table and then they're getting up and making fun of the president. It's very tricky. It's a tricky, tricky spot, as my friend on the radio, Chris Mad Dog Russo, would say. But he handled it with humor, with dignity. A great deal of the night was about the Wall Street Journal reporter that is been arrested in the Soviet Union and Moscow, and I guess there's a spy charge. Obviously, it sounds very trumped up to me, and I didn't mean Donald Trump, I'm sorry. But that was the focus, the serious point of the night was the focus on this journalist and a young guy, and I hope he comes home soon. Brittany Griner was there, which was really cool. And she was talking to everyone, and she's back now playing with the Phoenix WNBA, and I wish her well. She had a rough time over there. The poor woman has got, she's 6'9" tall, and, you can imagine hips and joints after a basketball must hurt, and she had a little bit of cannabis oil just to ease your pain a little bit, and she's in gulag, basically. So we see that it looks like the clock is starting ticking for Mr. Putin. What's going to happen with him? Now, there's funny stories that he has a body double, and I saw some pictures, and I have to say I think they're right. It's been mentioned that he has cancer, his hands shake, and now he's in this unpopular war, and the Ukrainians are fighting so hard. It's kind of the lesson that we learned from like the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, that nobody fights harder than on their home soil. For example, the colonists, or in Virginia, the Army of Northern Virginia under General Lee. They fought hard, boy. We've also seen that. We've seen that in Afghanistan. We've seen that in Iraq. How sometimes an army coming to a new spot is just, and in Vietnam, in the jungle. So anyway, Mr. Putin has entered in this disastrous war, and let's just remind everyone that Ukraine is still in Europe. That's between Asia and Europe. That's where it's at. So that's always been a hot spot. There's a lot of industrialization there. There's also a lot. It's the breadbasket of Europe, and I think everyone's been impressed by the courage. But I will tell you, reading about this, especially in the New York Times, and the photography of Taylor Hicks, who is unbelievable war photographer for the Times, it's a crazy and terrible mix of like World War I in the trenches, but using modern weapons, and they're fighting close to each other, and the body counts and the death counts are terrible on both sides. And as always, it's mostly young men and women fighting for some older, that's happened all in our history. So, Mr. Putin feels that what happened in 1992 when 15 nations became their own entities in the USSR was a travesty. But unfortunately, we're seeing the fallibilities of the Soviet army, that they have to take mercenaries, they have to take prisoners. Now their draft ages are getting older and younger. I think their monolith of military is a bit of a myth. They're taking astounding casualties, and I feel sorry for anyone who's there. God, my late father was in the Korean War, and he's 20 years old in some trench on the 38th parallel. So what's changed there then? Nothing. Dad, I don't know why we were in there. Well, okay, so we see that President Biden has really stuck true on the Ukrainian support, okay? We've given them all sorts of stuff, and most importantly, we've given them a vast amount of money, which a war costs, sometimes a multiple millions a day at minimum. So, again, with Mr. Trump, we saw that collusion with Mr. Putin. Always the feeling mentioned, of course, always in the mainstream press that, oh God, a very crafty, brilliant, scary guy. One of the scariest guys in the world. But his time's extinguishing. The stopwatch has started on you, Mr. Putin. So it's not going to end well for him. I do not believe. Okay. But what I like about this policy with Mr. Biden, President Biden, is that, we're taking on the Russians, okay? And we called this out from day one. You recall the appalling relationship with Trump and Putin. Obviously, the Russians have something on Trump. It's pretty obvious. And so he sucked up to him. I guess that's the only way to say it. I'm not sure how polite that is. But and did Trump coziness with Putin? Obviously, we know that Putin desperately wanted Trump to win both first and second terms and poured in billions of dollars into the race in all sorts of nefarious ways, okay? And the connection between the Russians and President Trump has never been fully, it will come out someday, and it's going to be terrible. Anyway, so President Biden, we were talking about the correspondence dinner, he can make it funny, and then he can be as serious as can be. And he really did a great job with that. Moving on here, let's talk. Okay, a couple things. I've got to do I forgot my annual beginning wrap here, Kevin. I know that COVID looks like it's in the rearview mirror, but we're not sure it isn't. If you have questions, can you please call 211? Now, Kevin, you weren't here the last show. I heard from someone that the 211 program is in jeopardy because it was not being called enough. So let me explain about 211 to everyone who's listening. If you're having problems paying your rent, heating bill, water bill, electricity, if you're worried about food, if you're trying to buy a used car, if you're trying to get a loan, if you're trying to get some COVID shots, if you're trying to get health care, if you're trying to get Medicaid, if you're trying to get Medicare, if you're trying to get SSI, this is the number to call, 211. Everywhere in the state of Vermont, all 14 counties, Addison, Bennington, Caledonia, Chittenden, Essex, Franklin, Grand Isle, Lamoille, Orange, Orleans, Rutland, Windsor, Windham, and Washington. I got them all. You can all call this number, 211, if you're worried about your mental well-being, if you're having some scary thoughts that are scaring you or other people, 211, okay? If you need to get 3 squares, which to the old-timers would be called food stamps, 211. But I've been told, as I mentioned, that this program is in danger because it's not being called enough. And if you have any questions, give it a call, please. 211, absolutely toll free. Kevin, thanks for putting that up there. I appreciate it. So I'll tell you what we're going to talk about now. We're going to focus. We have 19 minutes left. So what I'm going to focus is, and I'm kind of key off an article I read today in the New York Times front page. So I'm talking to everyone here on May 9th. Now, this show is being shown live, but will also be shown on tape. So I'm out to you Tuesday about 5:45 on May 9th. Okay, so the New York Times. Let me explain to anyone who's reading the Times. The front page of the New York Times, the story to the far right is always considered the most important. Thank you, excuse me. And that story today is about how Republicans in state legislatures in many, many states are trying to chisel away voting rights and trying to make voting harder and more difficult. And this is just an example of the classism and racism of the Republican Party. Now, I am a justice of the peace. I've registered over 1,600 people to vote. And so I am always for the people, okay? For example, in Vermont, if you are a felon and you have done your time and you're free, we can register you to vote. We can register you to vote the day you come out of prison, okay? Now, again, one thing I think we all know is that people coming out of prison are very much at risk of falling into either bad habits or hanging with bad people or just the recidivism rate, which is the rate which someone goes from being out of prison to back into prison, I think is something like 71%. It's really bad. And it's bad all over the country. But someone coming out of incarceration can be registered to vote. In a lot of states, a felon has a lifetime disqualification of voting. And, I always think that's unconstitutional when you think about double justice. If you've served your time, if you were sentenced to something, you pleaded guilty to that, and you served your time in your probation, and you're a free person, then I don't see why you can't vote. So what the Republicans are doing in a lot of states, I saw today, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma, Idaho, Wyoming, states that are very red, what they're doing is they're trying to eliminate mail-in voting. They're trying to eliminate or curtail drop-off voting, or someone picking up a ballot for someone. For example, a family member taking your mother's ballot to the polling place. Now, what they're doing is they're scared. They know the numbers don't work for them. They've become a party of older white people, pretty much entirely, and middle and older. But that does not hold, and that will not increase your base. Their base is shrinking, okay? And their base is shrinking every day, actually. And they know it, and they're scared. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to make the pie smaller. They're trying to have less people vote. Now, as someone who has done a lot of work on voting, my main thing is getting the people to vote. I don't care who you are. You know, I'm at voter registration sometimes at concerts, and someone will come up and say, "Hey, I voted for Trump." Okay, great. And then, you know, it's funny, they expect to get, you know, some emotion out of me, and I'm so used to being like, "Hey, okay, cool." And it disarms them, and then we can have a real conversation. Now, I don't care who you voted for. Now, we've talked on this show before, and this might go against the Democratic show, but Kevin will agree with me. 81 million people voted for President Biden. Unbelievable amount. 81 million. 75 million voted for Mr. Trump. Unbelievably high number. Till the time of this election, that was the highest vote total ever. So to say, and I have some progressive and liberal friends who they just think every one of those 75 million people that voted are jerks, rednecks, racists. You know, I can say worse, but we're not going to do that. And what I think what we have to do is realize that if 75 million people are voting for something, then our messaging isn't working as a Democrat. And how they're falling for someone like Mr. Trump and Fox News and Tucker Carlson is, you know, like as Stalin said, if you repeat that lie over and over and over, it just takes hold, and they stay on message. But to repress voting, it's so terrible because the Republicans were really, after the Civil War, they were the ones who were they were the ones who did the Emancipation Proclamation. They're the ones who worked on the 14th and 15th Amendment to give all people voting. They were also involved in suffrage too. And for the party of Lincoln and Roosevelt, it's really sad, and Coolidge, that it's really sad that they're trying to limit voting. But this is a front page article in the New York Times, May 9th, today, that you can look online or see at the library. But what their strategy was, and this has been a strategy since 2013, they realized after President Obama got a second term, they realized that they could not perhaps take the presidency, but they could work on the state legislatures. And so what we have here is they've done is they've gone to the states' rights, and that's an old Republican ploy that was unfortunately used a lot in the civil rights movement. And so what they're trying to do is limit how many people vote. Now, we know that the founding fathers would think that was absolutely ridiculous. And so I want to go over, I have 12 minutes left. I want to go over what you need to do if you want to vote, okay? Now, first of all,
you got 10 minutes, not 12.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me figure out my thoughts here. I thought I had 12, now I had 10. So, okay. So if you want to vote, now, the next election will be the first Tuesday of March 2024. Now, if that Tuesday falls on the 1st, it cannot be the 1st. So it's the first Tuesday after the first day. So if you turn 18 before that day, we can register you when you're 17. We're also going to have non-citizen voting on local issues. This was a new thing that was approved. And so what you want to do, probably the person listening to the show is over 18, and if they're not registered, maybe you've moved. Maybe you used to live on North Avenue, now you're on Pearl Street. Or you used to live in Richmond, now you're up in St. Albans. Okay, you can go to your city hall. You can go online. Online is probably easier. You can go online. And again, if you have questions about this, let's put it up there again, Kevin, that 211. 211 is very helpful on all of this stuff. There it is. Okay. Geez, I should get royalties on 211, Kevin. How about you?
Yeah, we should all get royalties.
Okay. So, what we're going to have to do is we need everyone to vote, okay, to move forward as a society. As I've talked to you before about COVID, we aren't able to move forward like we should unless everyone is vaccinated. And, I believe about 85% of the people are vaccinated now, so that's a good story. But if you're not registered, for example, if you have, sometimes new Americans have trouble with English, or unfortunately in my time working at the polls, I've met several elderly people that could not read. We can work on that. We can get you your ballot. We can get a nonpartisan person to read the ballot for you, or a justice of the peace. I am a justice of the peace. Let's put my number up there, Kevin, if anyone needs to register me, or I need to register anyone, I'm sorry. 80, hey, there it is. It's weird to see your own phone number up there. Call before midnight tonight. Okay.
Don't call before 7 a.m.
Okay, I need to keep moving forward here, okay? And so we have 7 minutes left. So, okay, let's talk about, so you're watching this, you say, hey, I'm not registered. You can go to City Hall, talk to the wonderful people at City Clerk's office on the second floor of City Hall in Burlington. They are open 8 to 4:30 every day. If you're watching this Winooski, you can go to 27 West Canal Street, the wonderful people at the City Hall there. Or in South Burlington at 180 Market Street, okay? The new town hall. Okay. So, there are so many ways to vote. Now, here's another worry. Sometimes people don't have identification. They've lost it. Or perhaps they don't have their license, or they lost it for some, a DWI, or it expired, or they lost it. We can register you with the last 4 digits of your Social Security. Okay, so let me stress to you, I am a justice of the peace, and I've registered, I've been told, more voters than anybody in the state of Vermont, okay? And so we don't want your full social. The state of Vermont doesn't want your social. Our new Secretary of State, can we put her up there, Sarah Copeland-Hansis? She's off to a great start. I think we have her up there. But, she's continuing the good work. She's continuing the good work of our buddy Jim Condos. And I also want to congratulate Chris Winters, former Assistant Secretary. He is now Secretary, hey, Sarah, from Bradford, Vermont. And also, Chris Winters is now the new Commissioner of Child and Youth Services, which is quite an honor. He ran against Sarah in the primary. Sarah's off to a great start. She's really committed to the people, as is Mr. Condos. And I wish Mr. Jim Condos, maybe we could put him up there just to say goodbye. I think he's retired now from politics. He's a great guy. He did a lot for me personally. He's my friend. Okay, I have 5 minutes left, I've been told. And so we summed up. You can go to City Hall. You can give me a call. You can go online. You can call a justice of the peace. You can register yourself. If you don't have the right ID, you can use the last 4 digits of your Social Security card. If you have questions about your Social Security card, if you've lost your Social Security card, you can go to Social Security on Pearl Street and sign up and get a new card, and I think you get it within 10 business days. Again, 211 on all this is very helpful, okay? Now, I have 4 minutes left, so a couple things I want to talk about. On Friday, May 12th, the Democratic Party is having our Curtis Hoff Awards, and we're having our Curtis Hoff Awards, okay? And these are our awards that once a year we have a big fundraiser, and we honor a couple Democrats that have done great work. Now, the list this year is great. It is Ryan McLaren, a dear friend of mine, who was the campaign manager for Congressman Peter Welch, now Senator Peter Welch, and now working in his office. A great guy, a guy I've worked with since 2011. Very kind, wonderful person. Coach at BHS. Go Seahorses. Okay, Ryan, congratulations. The next winner was Natalie Silver, who now in law school at George Washington, graduate of Bates College, and Ryan was graduate of Wesleyan. And she was the campaign manager for Congresswoman Becca Balint, who's off to a great start. And then also Senator Cheryl Hooker, Democrat, of course, from Rutland, always fighting for the labor unions, always fighting the old boy syndrome of Rutland, always fighting for the people, long-time Democratic activist. So Ryan McLaren, Natalie Silver, and Senator Cheryl Hooker will be honored at the Davis Center at the Curtis Hoff Democratic Party Awards this Friday at 6 o'clock at the Davis Center. Now, the Davis Center is the student center at UVM. We're going to have a great speaker. We have a state senator from Wisconsin that has been working on fighting the Republicans there tooth and nail on the trans issue. Now, let's just talk very quickly about anything the Republicans are doing on the trans issue. You must remember that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are in the Declaration of Independence. So anyone who tries to limit what someone is trying to do and live their life is in the wrong. And we stand with trans people. The Democratic Party stands with trans people. The mayor of Vermont, the mayor of Burlington, Moreau, Weinberger, okay, the President of the United States. And so our trans folk, our brethren, they are welcome at our tent at all times. So we see a Republican Party that is trying to close ranks, trying to make it more difficult to vote, try to take away people's rights. Now, what kind of party is that? And where is that going? Where is the future of that party? There is really none, as far as I'm concerned, unless they really they need to steer the boat some way toward the middle. Okay, I've got about a minute and a half left. I want to thank my crew today, Jackson, Daniel, Kevin. I'd also like to thank everyone here in the support staff. I also want to wish all of you a wonderful Mother's Day, okay? I need to say hello to my dear mother, Kathy, okay? What your mothers have done for us are amazing. And so the whole staff here wants to wish everyone Mother's Day, okay? It's going to be a great day. And we have 1 minute left, so we're going to sum up. My message to you about 211, if you have any questions about social services or COVID or voting, 211. The next election will be in March, but it's not that far away. It's less than 10 months away now. So we'll see what's happening with it. We're going to have a mayor's race. We're going to have all sorts of city council races. And okay, looks like I have 1 minute left. So 30 seconds, is that? Okay, thank you. So 30 seconds left. What I'd like you to take from this today is that I think the president is doing a great job. The Democrats, we're doing a great job holding the Senate, getting the judges through, getting the ambassadors through. The House is so strictly divided right now, nothing seems to happen. Okay, I'm just about done. I hope the show is a little disorganized, but that's how politics goes. I want to thank everyone. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Everyone watching this show, thank you.